Hello everyone and welcome to another video from Carl's Tech Shed. Well, what I've got for you today is this little USB flash drive which is fashioned into to look like a Nikon camera. It was officially sold to me as a 64GB USB flash drive, but to be honest I wasn't all that certain it was 64 gigs when I bought it. It just looks too cheap and plasticky to hold 64 gigs, but I thought nonetheless let's just have a look at it. But unfortunately when I received it, it doesn't work at all. When I've plugged it into the USB port in both my systems, it just starts to, well, it didn't do anything at first, so I took the rubber housing off of it and I exposed the USB drive itself like this. And what I found was that when I just plugged this into the computer, this piece of metal just started to get really hot. So I was a bit concerned about that. And when I took it apart, I couldn't see any obvious issues. So I'll probably just put this down to being a defective chip. I'm going to take this out of the housing now, and we'll have a look at what's inside it. Okay, well now that I've taken the USB flash drive apart, you can see that there's just a single TSOP memory IC on one side of the board, and if I flip it over, you can see that there's just one of these die-on PCB style controller ICs. There's a few passives, there's a couple of capacitors, a couple of resistors, and that's about it. But what's suspicious about this is that there's no manufacturer's name on the memory IC. There's just a very vague part number and a couple of letters at the bottom in like this unusual green, almost like a pen, but it's obviously like a silk screen process or a stamp, but it doesn't look very convincing to me. I've typed the part number into Google, and all I can find are some Russian forums where people are complaining that they've bought flash drives and they're not working properly, they're powering up and shutting down rapidly, or they're not holding the full capacity. Most of the sites are actually saying that people have bought 64 gig flash drives, and these only hold 8 gigabytes apparently. But one forum member said that he bought his flash drive with a advertised capacity of 512 gigabytes, and he had exactly the same problem, that it would only hold about 5 gigabytes of data before it stops retaining any more data. So when you unplug the flash drive and then plug it back in, you'll either have corrupted files or only a few of the files that you've copied over will transfer. Another telltale sign is that the speed of transfer will be incredibly slow. Again, some people have mentioned that these are only transferring around 5 megabytes a second, which is ridiculously slow. If it were a real 64 gig flash drive, to be honest, it's even slow if it were an 8 gigabyte drive. Also, if this were a genuine 64 gig flash drive, I'd expect to find something like a BGA package for the IC, for the memory IC, and they're not a TSOP, because TSOP package is quite old now, and BGA flash ICs are a lot more common, especially in larger sizes, because you can get a much higher pin count with a BGA package than you can with a TSOP. Also, you don't have to have any clearance either side for the tracks or traces, because all of the connections are made underneath through the ball grid array. Now, the other thing about this flash drive is that the rest of it is very poorly constructed. As I mentioned just now, the memory controller IC is simply a die-on PCB type, which is quite unusual if it were a real 64 gig flash drive. Just to give you a comparison, I mean, I've got my 32 gig USB 3 drive here. I picked this up on eBay a few weeks ago for about 20 quid. And this is a genuine drive. I've checked it with H2 Test W the moment I bought it, and I immediately I knew that it was genuine because the speed was about right. It was transferring at around 60 megabytes a second, which for a USB drive is about adequate. But also, once it got to the end of the test, it completely passed. Every single byte which had gone onto the drive had been read back properly. So there's no discrepancy on the memory there. So, but just as a comparison, I mean, that's a 32 gig drive. This isn't even an expensive one. As I said, this is only about £20. So they are more. You can get more expensive ones from this, and this is only an ADATA branded one. But even so, the build quality is very good. There's no plastic on this. The whole thing is made of aluminium or something like that. Even the end cap, it's all metal. So is this bit here. You've got a small hole here just for the for a lanyard or something like that if you want to clip that on. So I mean, overall very good quality. Then you compare the piece of rubbish this was contained in, which is this little piece of metal here, and the only thing you've got to hold it in place to stop it from slipping out are these two little clips, which you just bend them over like that to hold it in place. And especially when that's so close to the memory IC, and you've got these connectors at the end. You know, if you short these out, you're probably not just going to lose data. You're probably going to short the IC out as well, which is probably what has happened with this one here. Another thing which I thought was quite strange is that the fact they're actually using 8 gig flash chips for this, because I remember a few years ago when I bought a counterfeit flash drive. I think it was back in 2005 or 2006. This is when the counterfeit flash drives really started to take off, especially from the Far East, like China. And I think I bought a 2 or 4 gigabyte flash drive, and again, the same sort of problems. It was very slow, it wouldn't hold all the data, and when I took it apart, the flash chip inside looked virtually identical to this, but the part number was actually a 16 megabyte Toshiba IC, I believe, and all they'd done is they'd put a partition onto the memory IC. You could actually look this up in computer management on Windows XP, and you could see there was a hidden partition on the memory chip where they'd installed some sort of software or firmware to fake the capacity of the drive. And I mean, since then, you know, I've picked up a few flash drives, usually just out of curiosity, because I know they're going to be fake, especially for that price. But you know, when it's only £2 or £3, it's quite interesting to see what's inside and see how the counterfeiters are progressing with technology. And sadly, it's not really that much. But what I want to get at is that I'm surprised they used an 8 gigabyte flash chip, because they could have used a much lower capacity chip and still achieved the same result, i.e. Producing a flash drive which shows that it's a 64 gig drive. So I can only conclude that it's one of two things. Either they're buying 8 gigabyte chips incredibly cheaply and just thinking to themselves, well, you know, at least if someone in a shop wants to demonstrate this to someone, they can load up a few photos or, you know, a short video clip and demonstrate part of it working. Or the most, what I believe to be the more convincing story would be that they've got a load of these defective 8 gigabyte chips, which are probably defective for many reasons. They're then scrubbing the markings off of them and then rebranding them with this unusual part number. And there's probably something like a 98% failure rate on all of these drives for one reason or another, whether it's like this one where the IC doesn't work at all and it just gets very hot, or whether some of the others may not hold the full capacity. So there's definitely something going wrong here. But in a minute, I'm just going to show you some of the websites which are complaining about this exact same type of memory IC in various different flash drives of different shapes and sizes. Okay, well, as you can see here on this Russian forum website, there's someone here who's got exactly the same memory chip inside their USB flash drive, and they're claiming here that they've had a power failure on the drive. So, in other words, it's just stopped working. It's just powered down, which is similar to what's happened to mine, where it just keeps overheating and doesn't display anything on the computer. Yeah, I quite like this phrase here where it says that it turned out to be a dead weight, or as I would call it, a doorstop. So it's completely useless. Here's somebody else who'd bought one which was advertised as a 512 gigabyte drive from AliExpress, which is, for those of you who don't know, AliExpress is like a Chinese version of eBay where you can buy electronics and flash drives from the Far East. It's always 99% of what's on there is absolute rubbish. It's either counterfeit, faulty, or just generally very poor quality. There's a lot of fake MP3 players and that sort of rubbish on there, which is why I don't go on there. There's also someone here who says that they've tried to format it in FAT32 from NTFS and it doesn't look like it's working. And on this forum here, this is another Russian forum which I've converted into English using Google, and someone's got all of the again, they've got all of the memory data here which they've got from their PC, and when they compare it with the actual flash drive, it doesn't actually work. It says here that the data won't exceed 8 gigabytes. So in other words, they're just using an 8 gigabyte chip which has had the firmware or the controller messed about with so that it displays a higher capacity. Someone here says that they wrote a complaint to the seller and they bought 3 pieces, so 3 units at a small discount or something. But yeah, just overall, this whole website, bear in mind, this is the only couple of websites I can find with any reference to this part number. So there's no data sheet, there's no website, there's no manufacturer's name, there's absolutely nothing on this memory IC apart from these 2 forums. And about the actual USB controller, you've got no chance of finding out what that is because it's just a standard die-on PCB with no markings. So even that's probably half fake anyway. It's completely useless. So, I mean, in conclusion, all I could suggest is if you're buying USB flash drives, buy them from a reputable company or reputable website. If you're going to buy them online, go to somewhere like Amazon. If you're going to buy them from the high street, don't buy them from a small sort of one-man band shop on the corner. You know, go somewhere which is going to give you good customer service if there is a problem, you know, an electronics retailer or something like that. I'm not saying that that's going to, you're always going to get a perfect flash drive from one of them. There probably are a few fakes floating around in large stores, but the chances of you finding one are going to be a lot lower than if you go to somewhere like eBay. Well, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have another video up soon for you.